the Tech Diva here, and today in this video I want to talk about communication. And communication meaning communication with your team, with your web designer, with your web developer, or with just people in your life. How to communicate effectively to get the results that you want. So communication is something that you might consider like something you do very naturally. You communicate by talking to people. And if you talk to someone and you tell them you want a new logo designed or something on your website, or you want to make this adjustment here or there, or you're talking to someone like your partner or your child and you're telling them to do something or something that you'd like to have done, and then somehow it seems like they didn't hear you or they didn't get it, or you get back something that was nothing like at all what you wanted, or there's some sort of misunderstanding. Well, one of the definitions of communication comes from neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and it says that communication is the response that you get. So what that means is that the responsibility actually comes on us, the communicator, to communicate in a way that's effective so that the person receiving the communication understands what you want and then produces the results that you're actually aiming for. So it's like a way of taking control of the results you want is by communicating effectively in the first place, right? So why is this important, for me as a tech diva, right? Well, sometimes the biggest problems I see people having when they're working with a web designer or a developer is that their communication breakdown, right? Like you have this picture in your mind of this logo that you want or the way you want your website to look, and you outsource to a web designer or a web team, and then you get back something that's like not at all what you wanted. And then you get really frustrated. You're like, well, why didn't they do what I wanted or whatever? And what that is that somehow they didn't understand exactly what you wanted, and so they came back with the best that they thought or what they interpreted from you, but it's just not at all what you wanted. So a way to think about communicating effectively is to think about when you're giving a message to someone, either a web designer or your developer or someone in your team or in your life, you want to say something in 3 ways. And by saying it 3 different ways to communicate the same thing, that way that you're basically interpreting the message in 3 different formats to give them a full, comprehensive understanding of what you mean, so then they come back and they actually hit spot on with whatever it was you wanted, right? So if you're communicating in 3 ways, what are the 3 ways? Those 3 ways are, first, you want to communicate very literally, very technically. You want to say, I want an ad designed and I want it to be 4 inches by 4 inches. I want it to have a headline that's goes across the page, and I want it to be in Times font, and I want it to look like an editorial, and I want to have 2 images in it, right? That's a very literal explanation of what you might want, say if you were working with a designer. The next way you want to talk is in metaphor, right? So you want to communicate to them what you want in a metaphor. So you might say, I want this ad, to be something that people trust because it's I want it to look trustworthy. So you know how whenever you're talking with someone in your life, like a family member or your partner, you know how you kind of receive their communication and what they're saying in a totally different way than if you're speaking to like a salesman, like a used car salesman. The way you listen to a used car salesman is probably completely differently than the way you listen to your mother or your daughter or your partner, right? Why is that? Because probably we trust our mother or our daughter or our family member much more than what we trust a used car salesman. So the way we receive the communication is different, right? So that's what I want to communicate in this editorial ad. I want it to be something that people trust and they hear and receive as if they're listening to someone that they trust instead of receiving an ad from someone that they know is just trying to sell them something, right? That would be a way of describing what you want in a metaphor. The third way of communicating is to describe something and to use it in a story, right? So you want to tell a story. So in this example I'm using, you might say, there's a story of a man who wakes up one day and he has this back pain, and the back pain is really, really bad, and he suddenly picks up the newspaper in the morning like he always does, and all of a sudden he looks down the newspaper and he flips it open to this page and he sees this editorial ad mentioning that like new back pain relief discovered, and then it's this description of this new product on back pain relief, and the guy says, oh my god, this is my lucky day. This is an article on back pain relief, and here's a product from this very thing that I'm suffering from. Awesome, and it lists the website. So the man goes to the website, he finds this product that's for back pain relief, and then he buys it, right? So that's the story of what you want to explain to someone to say, okay, now I want to make an ad that basically tells this man with this back pain that this is the product he needs right now that's going to give him immediate relief. So by telling someone, like in this case, a designer, about the ad that you want to create in these three different ways, first very literally and technically, and then second with a metaphor, and then finally by telling a story around what your, how this editorial ad would show up for someone, that conveys this in a much, much more clear way. So now this person that's receiving this direction to create this editorial ad, they have a clear idea, or pretty clear idea, of what you want, right? They know the size, they know, what you want it to kind of the energy and the tone of it, and they also know like kind of the communication you want to convey and how it's supposed to show up for someone, right? So when you speak to your designer or your developer and you talk about something that you want and you describe it in three different ways, literally and technically, and then using a metaphor, and finally by telling a story, you communicate in such a way that the designer or developer fully understands what you're intending. So what you get back as a result is much, much closer than what you would have gotten should you have just given them one of those things. Like maybe you just told the story, or maybe you just told them the technical description of what you wanted, but no story or metaphor, right? If you only tell one part, you're going to open up the opportunity for them to totally misinterpret what you wanted, and you're going to get back something that may not be near what you wanted. So it's these three parts of communication that really give you the effective result that you want to actually get what you want as efficiently and as cleanly and clearly as possible, and it just really works for everyone involved, both the designer or developer or person on the other end, and for you and the results you want to get. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.